everybody. Today we're going to talk about 3 simple strategies that you can incorporate into your homeschool today to reduce sibling bickering. If that's been a challenge for you and you're quite done with it, quite tired with it, then I think these strategies may be of use to you, so stick around. And if we haven't met already, I'm Teresa Wiedrich. I'm the certified life coach. I'm first the graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach, and I'm here to help you shed what's not working so you can enjoy your homeschool mom life more, so you can show up more authentically, confidently, and purposefully in your homeschool and your mom life. And it's lovely to meet you. If you want to share who you are, where you're coming in from, I'd love to hear about you and your story. In the last few months, I've been prepping for my Reimagine group coaching program that's going to start in a few weeks. And I have had direct conversations asking very specific questions of moms, the challenges that they're experiencing in their homeschool, in their family life. And I've learned that the very number one issue that I found challenging is the one that I've heard most often repeated. So if you haven't guessed what it is, you can probably tell by the title, but if you haven't looked, I would love to hear what you would say. The number one challenge you find in your homeschool. For me, it is sibling bickering, conflict. It's just not my thing. And I'm sure it's not yours either. So if this has been a challenge for you, stick around. So I got this question from Janice. Her name's not Janice, but I got this question from this mom. She says, I'm an only parent to a 12-year-old girl. We've homeschooled from the beginning. I always wanted to unschool, but had never fully taken the leap until we were thrown into turmoil in our life. It has mostly worked beautifully for us, but sometimes I struggle with trusting it and not feeling afraid of ruining my daughter. And being an only parent is a heavy mantle to carry. Add to it homeschooling and then unschooling for us. And I find it almost impossible to find others that really can relate and understand. Do you relate? Somehow I think that is the reason that contributes to the conflict I'm having with my daughter. Or maybe it's more than that. Can you help? Then I also had a conversation with a mom named Darian. She said this: we're in our 4th year of homeschooling. We have 3 kids, aged 10, 8, and 5. Our homeschool style is what I will call relaxed, which means we do something teacher-led, and other times it looks like our girls have their own projects. My biggest challenge is not getting too frustrated and overreacting to sibling quarrels, feeling overwhelmed with stress of daily chores and routines, and overreacting when my triggers are activated. One being too much mess. Do you identify? I hear this often. Laundry and math. If we could just overcome the laundry and get some math done, all would be good. So those words from Darian could literally have been lifted from my own homeschool mom experience. And I think these are great questions. There are many questions that circulate around the conversation of sibling quarrels and sibling conflict and conflict with kids and a variety of other things like that. Relational stuff. I'm curious if you identify, and if you do, would you share a little bit about your story so I can learn a little bit more about you? And if you've got questions, actually, if you've got specific questions, you can always throw them down below. I'll actually be addressing these questions in the Q&A next week after I'm offering a free masterclass series for homeschool moms on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. And this is one of the conversation points that we'll be having. The webinar is titled From Bickering to Bonding. It'll help you manage sibling conflict and parent-child conflict without losing your minds. Can I hear an amen? I can hear the confetti, or I can see the cheerleaders jumping up and down and saying, what? Is there a possible solution? Well, let me answer that next week. If you've got specific questions, I will definitely address them next week. So if this is actually just one of the 3 topics that I'll be discussing. If you have a specific request, definitely let me know, because I want to incorporate that. So I'm going to be going over topics like the ones we've talked about today and go into much greater detail, and you don't want to miss it, because I don't know about you, I know that there's a lot of people that know how to deal with conflict, but they're not always honest about what's really going on inside their homes or how they really overcome it. Or frankly, they definitely don't have the construct or the backdrop or experience of also homeschooling and knowing what it's like in the saturated lifestyle that is homeschooling. It's actually one of the most common reasons I hear homeschool moms join me for coaching is they say, I have these challenges, I want to address them, but I'm afraid if I bring it to a therapist or if I bring it to somebody in my family, they'll just tell me to put the kids in school. And I certainly think there's other ways to tackle challenges in our families, our family lives, other than just putting the kids to school. So, hey, Michelle, I see you're here. I'm wondering if Kristen is here, and tell me, who is Life Skills Mama? What's your name? I'm assuming that's not your first name. Lovely to meet you both or see you both here. So one thing I've realized is that sibling fights and conflict aren't just about who took the last toy or who wanted to sit in the front with mom, if you're at that age where kids are not in buckles all the time. But I know that as we respond as parents, the way we respond directly impacts how they're going to address their conflict and how we can help them learn to deal with interpersonal conflict. And the way we do it for ourselves with the most important people in our lives will definitely reflect how they learn or don't learn. Here's why all of this matters. I mean, as though you need to be told why it matters. Because I think we sometimes in our homeschool mom life spend more time focusing on how to make things stop, how to make the conflict stop or the big emotions stop, and breaking up conflicts or fights because we got stuff to do. Is this true for you? Because it's been my experience. And though it be true we have stuff to do, perhaps one of the things that we have to do is teach our kids how to grow up learning how to do conflict, learning how to relate to each other and connect with each other and connect with us. And that's not a topic that a lot of people add to their agendas each week. Typically, when they do, they take it into a character training manual or from a character training manual and say, we're going to work on a particular character trait. And though I get that, I get where that comes from, I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn character and learn how to relate to each other just by allowing for interruptions and actually addressing the interruptions. No, it's not easy, but yes, it can and needs to be done. So today, I'm going to talk about the 3 simple strategies to help you right away to make a difference in your homeschool by decreasing sibling bickering and conflict. So here's strategy 1, pausing and connecting. Instead of jumping right in and trying to figure out, okay, which child is having what conflict and what happened and who did what and tell me all the stories, or just trying to get them to, quote, calm down, perhaps try pausing first. Sometimes you just need a little space to take a breather and to come down from the intensity of the emotions. No one ever has been calmed down because someone said, calm down. I've said it myself, and I have not seen the beneficial efforts from it, but I have heard many women talk about how they engage in their homeschools, and there's a variety of phrases that they use that are similar to calm down. But if you know what it's like to feel like you're having a really bad day and you're frustrated or you're anxious or you're really sad by something, someone telling you to just be happy or just stop feeling frustrated, or we don't have time for this emotion you're having right now, none of that has ever worked. So first and foremost, we want to pause and we want to just listen to our child's emotion. I can recall a story, the character's unnamed, but 2 particular kids. One child came to us, and it was actually both my husband and I in our room, and one of the kids came to us and said, Mom, so-and-so is doing such and such, and this is what happened, and this is how they did it, and this is why they did it. And I heard the full explanation, and it sounded believable to me because I've seen it happen before. Then a few minutes later, after I said something like, hey, unnamed child, come down here, I want to chat with you, what's going on? And I wasn't pleased because I could imagine what had just happened in my head. And so then I asked the other child, what was going on that you did ... And that child said, that's not what I did. In fact, what happened was the other sibling did ... And here's how and why she reacted and what was going on. And I thought to myself, ooh, tricky one. Both of the things they just shared could have happened and probably did happen in the last week. And I have heard these things before and they both sound believable. So what should I do? What is a mother to do? My instinct is to want to make a quick judgment just like every other mother. And yet I have learned both. It's not helpful for me to make a judgment at any point in the conversation, but also it's really not helpful for me to assume that because a child said ... therefore it's true, because we all have our perspectives and sometimes those perspectives work against each other and they can actually both be true at the same time. So what's the most important thing when a child is coming with the ... the story about their sibling and their frustration with their sibling? Well, I think pausing is the most important element, to just take a deep breath for yourself and to recognize that your goal is not to judge, but to actually get down onto their level and listen to their emotions. You could say something like this: I see that you're upset right now. What do you need? Waiting serves for us to be really present with them. In formal language, it's emotional regulation. We're helping them calm down by being with them in the big emotion. Not trying to make the big emotion stop, not trying to even make it stop by being with them, but just offering them someone to be with. And then maybe when they actually are calm or more calm, then just say something like, so let's talk about how we can figure this out. But don't assume that you're going to come up with an action plan and give them the 10-step detail to how to address their sibling for the rest of their life and never have conflict again. No, that won't happen. So why does this work? By just pausing and connecting with our kids. Kids often fight because they don't feel connected, because they feel unheard, or they feel overwhelmed. So when you're pausing and connecting with them, you are helping to regulate their emotions. We don't always need someone to rescue us from some scenario. What we need is someone to make us feel seen and heard. That happens for adults and that happens for kids. So imagine your kids are arguing right now. Okay, it actually could happen. And I have been very familiar with the routine. If I'm having a conversation with someone in coaching or even on a live, I'll hear later that somebody actually had a child come tattle or tell them something about their sibling frustrated with them, or you fill in the blank. So maybe it's even happened right now. Just for a moment though, just imagine hearing your child ask you, Mom, someone did something to me. Put your hand on your heart and just take a long, deep breath. If it especially causes you emotional dysregulation, then just check in with yourself. Okay, so how are you feeling? Tell me, what can I do for you right now? And then just take a deep breath with them, invite them to do it, ask them what's going on. And then when they're able, ask them, how can I help you solve this together? So that's strategy number one. Really, that's just about acknowledging what's really going on for them. So strategy number two can be about problem solving over punishment. And I know that many parents default to timeouts or taking away privileges, and I'm not an exception. There are times I still catch myself doing this. I get it because, I don't know, it's a default setting. I'm not sure where it came from, but we default set to not wanting to feel the uncomfortable emotion in another child, and so then we want to shut it down. We want to maintain our original schedules as we'd originally planned, and this is interrupting. It's not helping us. So we sometimes just say, nope, not happening. You are not going to be able to hang out with your brother if you're doing this, or you don't get to have your screens, or you fill in the blank. And I get it. I'm not above it, but I do know that punishment doesn't serve. I watched this happen in the airport the other day, and actually it was with a 1-year-old who was looked tired to me, but I don't really know. And the mother was very frustrated with this child reacting as he was. And I could see she was actually threatening him. So he's actually just around one. He looked like he just learned to walk. And so she's frustrated with him. He's loud, but she wants him to stop. I'm not sure, something. She's loud enough to make me almost hear her actual words. And she's threatening him. And I understand the frustration being in a public place, having a child that's yelling or wanting something. But I know from experience, it doesn't work. It makes sense that a mom wants to shut it down, or at least it does to me instinctively, but I know it won't work. And so what can she do? Well, I think probably one of the biggest things she can do is actually get comfortable with allowing for big emotions, which if you've heard my story, then you also know that it wasn't something I was trained in. I don't know about you, but not a lot of us got a lot of detailed training on how to address our big emotions, let alone listen to other people's big emotions. I'm curious if that has been your experience. Let me know in the comments. So I have learned that me learning to feel my feelings, accept my feelings, and learning to accept other people's feelings means that I'm able to do that back and forth. I'm able to listen to other people's feelings more deeply when I can feel my own, when I can accept my own, and vice versa. Because I feel my feelings more, I'm listening to them more. Because I'm listening to them more, I can listen to myself more. And ultimately, when we're in conflict or challenged by something, we just want to feel connected and seen. And so that's our way of addressing the real issue. Instead of trying to problem solve or really trying to punish, instead of going to the deep problem solving element, we actually really are serving our kids. We'll be helping them because we'll be teaching them how to address their big emotions, feel their feelings. We'll have them really create solutions to address challenges with their siblings. Now, caveat here. I've been around parenting long enough to see that there are a lot of parenting books that will tell you that this is the formula to address the parenting challenge. And though there are a lot of ideas out there, including what I'm sharing with you right now, I know that there won't come a time when kids won't have conflict. They will, because we grow up and we still have conflict with people. This is an inevitability as part of the human existence, being in relationship with people. There will always be conflict. So if the expectation you have in your home is to not have conflict, then Houston, we have a problem. I understand the penchant for not wanting to have the conflict and the discomfort of addressing the big emotions. However, it's not our human reality. So we need to back up a moment and ask ourselves, what's the end goal of conflict? And I think one of the end goals of conflict, especially between the siblings or perhaps with us and one of our kids, is to become closer and connect more deeply. So try asking questions at that moment like this. Ask, what do you think would be a fair solution for what's going on right here? How can we make sure that you feel heard, that you are honored and acknowledged, and also you are as well? How can we do that? If you ask that question, and you ask that from a 14-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 19-year-old, they're not necessarily going to say to you, oh, I've got the brilliant strategy or approach, and now my sister agrees with me. That won't necessarily happen, but you will put in their mind an intention or a plan, a way of thinking about conflict beyond just, I'm really angry and I want to grab something away from my sibling. They're thinking about what the other child needs. So if you have a child, not that this has ever happened to me, but if you have a kiddo that knocks down another kiddo's Lego build, and instead of saying, that's it, no more Legos, we are putting the Legos away for the rest of your life or day, just the day, maybe life if you're having a real bad day. Well, instead you can say, okay, pause, breathe. Okay, am I okay? Can I engage this in a way that's kind and connected and will make them feel seen and heard? Okay, yeah, I think I'm okay right now. And then ask them, okay, so what can we do? I can see that you're both upset. What do you think we can do to fix this scenario together. This helps them practice empathy, not flawlessly, but it helps them to practice and also to learn negotiation skills, which will serve them for the rest of their life. So the third strategy that I'd offer you is daily connection rituals. So I think because we're homeschooling, we assume that our kids are always connected or they always have opportunities to connect. And same thing for us with our kids. We assume that because we're with them all the time, we'll always have time to connect. And both are just not so. But I've learned that the stronger that the sibling bond is, the less conflict, the fewer the fights, but not the absence of fights, just the fewer the fights. So no fights isn't an option. If that's the case, then come have a conversation with me and let's talk about how to learn emotional regulation so that you can be able to be present with those things. If you haven't heard my story already, I've overcome a significant block in that, and I find it challenging still on occasion, but I have real practical strategies that can address that. And it's a multi-layered process really for addressing PTSD and emotional dysregulation in that realm. But no conflict is not a possibility, but reducing conflict, it is a possibility. So some of the things you could do to increase your connection for the kids and for you with the kids. One is just by merely scheduling in eyeball to eyeball time with each of your kids, making sure that they get real contact and connection. Because even though we're homeschooling, it does not mean we're always truly available for them. Can I hear any amen? We can get awfully busy in our own world with our kids right beside us and frankly forget that we're really not connecting in with their hearts. This is important not just for you and your child, but for your kids too. So what could you do that would actually help you enable each of your kids to connect with each other? Sometimes, before I share what you could do together, I think it's important to recognize that because they are generally in each other's orbits a lot, they're spending a lot of time together, that it's valuable that they have time separate, especially when they move into the adolescent phase. They just ask for it. They want separate time. They want to be in their bedroom, on their bed, doing their books and their basket of studies or whatever by themselves. Or they want to go to the library. They'd love to go for a coffee just with you and feel like a grown-up. It's important to honor that stage. And even if it's not someone that's individuating and adolescent, they need to have that time just with you and to have separate time to recognize that they are separate beings and they're growing up. But so first of all, I think it's important to honor that each of the kids have different levels of wanting to be with each other. And you need to look at that and ask yourself, is this really serving the child in front of me? The interactions with the sibling. Is the neurodiverse brother being overwhelmed by the other brother? Is, too many kids in the same room? Is it overwhelming the teenage girl? This is all possible. So consider what their actual relational needs are first. Maybe they need separate time, but also maybe they need time together to actually do things that are fun together. So that we sometimes create routines of very interesting learning opportunities. We see them as interesting, but our kids, they don't always, because they don't always. We need to accept that the learning time, whatever we call that time, whether it's studies or school or homeschool or whatever you call it, that time might be prescribed and it might not feel like a lot of fun for your kids. You might think it's fun. I sure did. But they might not. And if they're not feeling the fun, then they might not be getting along with their siblings as smoothly. We all know this. But that's why it's important to sometimes say, you know what, it's Fun Friday, and we are going to have fun. And though mom is always going to clock the learning activities that are going on in our home, because she always knows when something's a learning opportunity, even when it's fun, we're going to do something that's off script, do something unlike all the routine activities that we normally do. And I think by building those moments where you're actually really connecting in with your kids, you are increasing the amount of connection they feel and therefore less likely to be in conflict. So if you notice that your kids are fighting consistently, ask yourself, how is the way you're doing your homeschool and how you're relating to each other really serving them? Okay, so I think that is a lot of strategizing right now. I'm curious if you have any questions right now. I have 3 questions from homeschool moms that I've collected here. So you're welcome to put your questions into the comment section, and then I'm happy to answer them. Of course, if I don't get enough time to answer all the questions, I will do that in the 20-minute Q&A next Tuesday. I believe that's March 4th in our From Bickering to Bonding Masterclass for Homeschool Moms. So the first question, let's see. This mom says, no, that's not right. What if one child is always the instigator and the other one is more passive? I'll bet that's somebody's experience all the time. There's always one child that's more passive. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that scenario. What are you really seeing? Because speaking specifically to somebody and hearing the details is more useful for me, but I'll just throw my first thoughts on that one. As I have learned for myself, it's more useful to not just help the instigator, the stronger kiddo, tone it down or learn how to speak in a way that she can be heard, but the more passive one actually needs to learn how to assert themselves. And so it's as important when addressing sibling bickering and conflict to help the child who is more passive to know how to address conflict and know how to assert themselves. So I'll definitely go into more detail in the webinar on that. How do I handle sibling fights when I'm already overwhelmed? Yes, indeed. That's a good question. Well, in my experience, first thoughts are that you will always have an opportunity to address this conflict again, because just give it 20 minutes. Can I hear an amen? If you don't figure out everything right now with 2 kids, it's okay. You'll have another opportunity. So I would suggest to you that if you are in an emotionally dysregulated place, like you're feeling really withdrawn or resentful or frustrated, or you fill in the blank, but you're feeling a lot of feelings, that's not the right time. I have learned over the course of time, whether it's with my partner or whether it's with my kids or certain other people close to me, that my goal is not to create quick solutions. My goal is to try and connect with the other person. You can always connect, but it might not be in that moment. And because you already know you're going to have another opportunity to have conflict, because that's just the state of the human experience, especially when you're homeschooling with kids, then you don't have to respond right now. And I would suggest it would be wiser for you not to do anything and to wait until you really are emotionally regulated. But I need to hear a little bit more about what does overwhelm look like for you, because there's probably many strategies to address that overwhelm as well, which, by the way, is one of the conversation points I have in the Reimagine Your Homeschool mini course. If you haven't already accessed that course, just in the last week, my daughter and I put together an 8-step homeschool reset guide, and we specifically address that topic. In fact, it was the primary reason I went into coaching was my own story of overwhelm. So I know that one well. And the last question I'll address right here so I can get going too is, should I step in right away or let my kids resolve conflicts on their own? Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think that goes back to the same conversation point that I've had about addressing conflict right away, that sometimes you can allow them to put into practice the things that you've taught them. And you don't have to default to thinking that you are the only person that can help them figure out how to address the conflict. They will have many opportunities to resolve those conflicts. So don't think it's always necessary to step in right away. I mean, it very much depends on what the scenario is, but I would default in my earlier years when I was very uncomfortable with conflict and big emotions to always try to step in because I wanted to squash the thing, just like, let's be done with it. We're just going to live happy, happy. We're going to capture that charmed life. And over the course of time, as I became more comfortable with my emotions and I became more comfortable with conflict, I recognized that it's okay to let it be. That conflict is going to happen, that kids are not always going to get along. They're going to feel their big feelings. I'm going to feel my big feelings maybe at inconvenient times, like when you're trying to get somewhere, or you're about to go on a family trip, or go to family photos for the year. Been there, done that. Conflict doesn't happen conveniently, not very often anyway. And so we have to accept that it's going to happen at random times that are really inconvenient, but that sometimes we don't have time to step in right away, and we have to just allow for it to evolve for a bit. Wait until everybody has a safe space to have a conversation and to feel like they are not quite as agitated or in their big emotions as they are presently. So that would be my first thoughts to that question. So I do have more questions to answer, but I can see because of time that I need to wrap up. But no worries, because I'm going to bring up some of these other questions in the free masterclass coming up next March 4th. March? When did that happen? March 4th, that's a Tuesday. I'm calling it From Bickering to Bonding. It'll help manage sibling to sibling conflict and parent-child conflict without losing your mind. And if you're interested in that, just send me a DM presently. I am about to have a landing page released for that so that you can sign up specifically. But I'm going to answer a lot of these questions in the 20 minutes at the end. We'll have a 40-minute webinar. You'll learn what I believe is the real reason that kids fight, and certainly why they escalate, and how to stop it before it starts. How to guide your kids toward problem solving instead of power struggles. And practical ways to build connection, even when it seems like you don't have any time. So this is just a one-time event. It's going to happen next Tuesday, March 4th. And I don't think you want to miss this. I think this might be the number one issue that homeschool moms share with me, that they just don't want to homeschool anymore. They're frustrated by the conflict or the lack of harmony or the disconnect in their homes, and they're worried that homeschooling is making it worse. So if you would like to attend, DM me. And if I still don't answer your question in the DMs here, I will definitely be answering all the questions there. It's a series. Next Tuesday is a series of 3 masterclass conversations. So the first one is From Bickering to Bonding, and I have 2 other ones. One is about reigniting you and creating space just for you. Another very common conversation point with moms. And then the other one is all about perfectionism and how to overcome perfectionism and enjoy the life, or the homeschool mom life, that you really have. So I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you soon.